Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm CJ Vogel, joined by Gerry Hamilton. It's move-in day on the 40 acres for 25 newcomers to Austin, Texas, to join the Texas program. A few have already been on campus for a couple days, joining the team for workouts, for bowl prep, obviously, as Texas went to the Peach Bowl, Cotton Bowl. Now the season's concluded. Now the rest of the gang is joining them up. Moving into Sand Jack, moving into campus, Gerry. A lot of newcomers for the Longhorns. I mentioned 25, 10 on the offensive side of the ball, and that's where we'll start. Of course, a lot of new faces here. We'll start with quarterback, KJ Lacey coming in. Of course, two running backs as well with Ricky Stewart, James Simon. Starting with that bunch in the backfield, what do you like about that group?
Yeah, I mean, KJ Lacey will come in as the number 3 QB, right? CJ, he'll be a number 3 QB. He'll redshirt next year. That's the plan. This now gives Texas 2 QBs that work out with David Morris at quarterback country, at QB country. Why is that significant? David Morris, really strong relationship with the Mannings, but strong relationship with Sarkisian. So he trains these guys and gets them ready. Helps get them ready for this scheme and what's going to be asked of them by Steve Sarkisian's scheme at Texas. So KJ Lacey, first commitment of the 25 class, and he will be the number 3 quarterback this spring for the Longhorns. Yeah. And CJ, now running backs, I'm going to let you go on running backs. James Simon out of Shreveport, Calvary Baptist, Ricky Stewart out of Tyler Chapel Hill, 2 different backs. James Simon, I think, has a chance to push early because of his background.
Yeah, I agree as well. And that's going to be a kind of a recurring theme with some of these guys. We've seen it in previous classes, but just having that NFL pedigree or college pedigree from a coaching perspective as well, that's going to be really interesting with James Simon. I remember talking with Tashard Choice down in Georgia for the Peach Bowl saying, what did you like about the two? Why did you kind of attract yourself to those 2 running backs of everybody else? And he said, look, both of them are hungry. Both of them want to grow. He said, look, Ricky Stewart, 10 yards of carry in high school. And that's on a lot of attempts too, Gerry.
1,000 carry almost, yes.
He has quite the stat sheet in high school at Chapel Hill, of course. And Coach Choice was also saying, they're 2 different backs, right? You got a glider. You got a guy that can bruise up the middle a good bit. And I really like the one cut and go, the vision from James Simon as well. Yeah. A guy that can get physical in between the tackles, something that Texas obviously was looking for this year as well. But something that I think builds off of itself pretty well for the Longhorns and its running back room. Of course, we've seen what has tried to be kind of that powerful back and that shifty back, and of course the hands out of the backfield. Both of them showcased that pretty well in high school for their senior year. Go ahead.
I think James Simon, I think he's going to be a good red zone short yardage back too, because he's just so instinctive. And that is the one thing coming off the 23 season and the 24 season that Texas needs, especially not knowing where Cedric Baxter's health is going to be. He's also really good in pass pro, really good out of backfield because his father is a longtime college coach, and pretty good running back / wideout himself. So I think James Simon, CJ, may push early for some time.
Gerry, do you think James Simon could get up to about 225 by his all
said and done? We've had his dad on Coffee and Football twice. He predicts 218 to 220. So that gives him the size, 5'11.5", 220. That's a 3-down back. That's what Texas really needs, and I think they got it in this class with Simon.
Good deal. Sticking on the offensive side of the ball, 3 wide receivers, maybe a shorter trip for all 3, obviously. All of them were down in San Antonio for the Navy All-American Bowl. I got to see 2 of them in practice. That was Khalid Lockett and Dalen McCutcheon, and both of them had really impressive showings on Tuesday of last week. They're making that hour trip up north after the bowl game yesterday to move into campus on Sunday today as well. So 3 of them, a lot of different skill sets there, but all 3 can make plays down the field, Gerry, and all 3 showcasing really, really impressive hands.
And they're different types of players. That's the thing. Khalid Lockett is an ex-outside receiver, 50-50 ball winner, great body control. That's what he is. Dalen McCutcheon's going to play that DeAndre Moore role, that position, so he's going to get a year to kind of bake into that position. And if DeAndre Moore has a really good 3rd year at Texas, he'll probably be off to the NFL. So that's an important year coming up for Dalen McCutcheon, but he'll get a lot of reps in the spring as well. And then Jamie French is a guy who you can move around a little bit. He can play X. I think he's got football intelligence. You can play him in the slot some if you want to. You can move him around. He's going to be a good chess piece. Another guy with great body control, really good awareness, better after maybe the best of the 3 after the catch. Because he's got some gifts after the catch for a kid that's going to be 6'2", 205. I really think he's very similar to Adonai Mitchell, AD Mitchell.
Ooh,
CJ, one tight end coming in.
Yeah.
Emery Winston out of Calhoun, Georgia, first ever Calhoun, Georgia high signee for the University of Texas. Where do you kind of see him this spring? Obviously, over time, you have to think that Juan Davis role may be perfect for him. But
Yes.
what are we thinking on him headed into the spring?
Well, Jerry, he just finished up a state championship run, right? He was in that state title game down in Georgia. Texas recruiting a lot of those kids. Of course, he was an early commitment in this class, and Texas stuck with him even after moving through a bevy of tight end options in the 25 class. So they obviously liked what they see in his junior year, stuck with him his senior year. I'm eager to see how his body develops because I think that's the biggest thing. With the ball in his hands, I think he's a big-time playmaker at the tight end spot. But how can he physically develop into a guy that can line up in that 12 personnel role and come across the back end of that offensive line and kick out an edge rusher and interior defensive lineman? That's going to be interesting to see how he develops year one. Getting in early is going to be really big for him to get that ball moving physically for him because, again, that's a tough thing to do for a tight end who hasn't yet seen that SEC size. Of course, playing in Georgia probably helps, but that's going to be really key for him. I do think that ceiling for him in the tight end role is going to be with the ball in his hands, moving after the catch. Of course, sticking in the trenches, only 2 of the 4 offensive linemen moving into campus today. Talk a little bit about Nick Brooks and Jackson Christian.
Nick Brooks is going to be the one guy everybody's going to be watching in the spring to see, does he stay at tackle? Does he play guard early, kick out the tackle? Because if he's down to 340 pounds from 370 his junior year. His senior tape, he moves quicker and more reactive. The move to Grayson was great. He went up against a future NFL player, all ACC type players every day in practice for that state championship team that beat Carrollton, who was very talented. If he is a tackle coming out of the spring, if it's a no-brainer, he's a tackle coming out of the spring, suddenly the depth at the tackle spot for Texas looks really good because in my opinion on Nick Brooks, he's going to take off physically in a college strength and conditioning program. Like he is going to get so much stronger. His body is going to change. If he ends up having that tackle, peripheral, reactive quickness, body quickness, Texas is going to end up with a guy that people wish they'd gone after much harder as a tackle prospect. Then Jackson Christian's going to, I've said before, I think he's a more physical version of Hayden Connor. Very similar frames. The intellect, played for a tremendous coach down at Port Neches Groves, Coach Joseph, won state title there, played for another. But he is a guy that has SEC physicality in his mindset in the run game. I think he's going to have the same intelligence and pass pro ability that Hayden Connor had. So these guys get time to develop, right? But if Nick Brooks proves to be a high-end tackle, that's really going to change the way that room looks headed into next year.
Jerry, talking about Nick Brooks, is it, sometimes you get the lazy comp of Cam Williams because of size. Is there similarities there, or is it still kind of a work in progress? Because I think Williams came in a little bit nimble on his feet. His hands, he was very patient in his pass sets. Do you see that with Nick Brooks, or is it still some development needed to get along the lines of what we've seen from Big Cam?
Yeah, I still think he has to prove against – and now, his proving ground's going to be different than Cam Williams. And Cam Williams came to Texas. There wasn't Colin Simmons screaming at you off the edge every day in practice. Nick Brooks is going to be put to the test. So he's going to be able to either pass that test early on. I think Cam was more of a surefire tackle coming in, where I think Nick Brooks still has to prove that peripheral reactive quickness, that body quickness. But I did see Cam Williams more, to be fair, in the high school level because I was going to Duncanville so much, as you probably were, CJ, during those years as well. I saw Nick Brooks once in high school, his senior year. So, but I think Cam Williams is a little ahead from the athleticism standpoint. But again, what happened with Nick Brooks' senior year, Cam Williams was doing his whole high school career. He was going against a power 4 edge rush players in practice.
Every day in practice.
Every day in practice. And that helps you.
Absolutely. Of course, the last player on the offensive side is athlete Michael Terry. He, of course, has been practicing with the Longhorns, getting work at wide receiver. That was kind of up in the air, whether it be, running back, tight end, receiver, defensive side of the ball even. Everybody across the country was kind of figuring out where they would use him. Right now, Texas used him at wide receiver as a scout team guy. And, talking with some sources behind the scenes, that's the belief that that's where he's going to start his Texas career, as well as on the right wide receiver spot with Coach Jackson in the spring. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, Jerry, let's start with defensive line. 5 newcomers moved into campus. 2 of them out of the portal. We'll start there. Cole Brevard out of Purdue, Travis Shaw out of North Carolina.
Well, Texas doesn't have any issues over the ball heading into next year. Cole Brevard, Travis Shaw, and Shaw can play some 3 as a run stuffer, but they have 2 guys now that are solid over the ball players, 330 pounds with multiple years of college football experience. And that's big because now you at least have 3 guys with Alex January that have played college football snaps in the college game. Alex January got some key snaps against Ohio State there in the college football semifinal. And then you have Melvin Hills coming off the redshirt year, who's a year into the programs, developed with Kenny Baker and developed with Torrey Becton. So that's a good starting spot for 4 guys in the spring. But now we got to talk about the freshmen as well. CJ, I'm going to let you go down that path because you saw Justice Terry work out prior to the Peach Bowl, and he will come in along with Myron Charles and Josiah Sharma. 3 guys that really, along with Alex January, hold the keys to the future of this defensive line position.
Yeah, you're right. I did get to see Justice Terry both games, Peach Bowl, Cotton Bowl. I got to talk with him very briefly at the Peach Bowl, just saying, hey, how are you liking it so far? Shook his hand, and I don't have big hands, Jerry, but he dwarfed my hand. Oh, yeah. He's got massive hands. He's got great length on his arms as well. That's what the number 1 defensive lineman in the country looks like physically. He does not look like he has an ounce of body fat on him, and he's carrying about 275, 280 at the moment. Plenty of room to still grow physically, and of course, Texas would like to get him north of 300 as soon as they can. That's going to be interesting to see how he moves throughout the spring, through winter conditioning. What does his body look like towards the end of spring football as Texas gets back towards it in the summer as well? But you also got to see Josiah Sharma. You went down to Florida to see Myron Charles. Talk about a little bit how they will fit into this defensive line picture as well.
Look, I think Sharma can be a tremendous over-the-ball player, but can also play at the 3. I think he's very similar for me. And I'm not saying he's going to be an all-pro level player, but as a prospect, very similar to Sean Rogers. Now, you have to go out and put in the work and go be that player, but he has that type of upside in terms of NFL draft. I don't think there's any doubt about it. Myron Charles he is the guys in our business that are fun to kind of watch because he's 80-plus inch wingspan, 10.5-inch hands, 6'4", 315 with skinny ankles and high calves. I mean, that he just oozes, I'm going to be really good if I handle my business. And the guys from Florida, because of the setup in high school football there, it's not like Texas or Georgia. These kids come out raw. It's just not the same setup with the athletic periods every day. There's not 9 full-time coaches. It's just not the same setup. So Myron Charles comes into Texas and that staff did a great job at Port Charlotte, just scratching the surface of his potential. And that's a pretty scary thing. But so we've now talked about 7 interior defensive linemen for spring practice before Texas adds anybody else from the portal to make that 8 or even potentially 9. So that's going to be 7 quality players and prospects for Kenny Baker to work with.
Yeah, it sure is. Of course, you need good interior linemen, but you need those edges as well. And Texas is bringing in 2, Lance Jackson, Smith Orogbo. Similar to how we talked about there being kind of a change or kind of an opposite at the running back spot. Yeah. This is very much the same when you got Lance Jackson, kind of the bigger, lengthier guy, heck of an athlete, but then you got the lightning quick Smith Orogbo on the opposite side. You got a strong side, weak side, whatever you want to call it. But my goodness, is that a heck of an edge room right there coming in. Seeing Lance Jackson on the sideline working with the team already, maybe 6'6", 275 already. That's a heck of an athlete, Jerry.
No, it is. I mean, and he is a guy that's going to be in the blink of an eye, CJ. I think he's going to be 6'6", 285. But an edge player that in your NASCAR package can spin inside as a rushing 3. He is very, very valuable long-term in this Texas scheme because of the big body SEC edge player that can play the run and still affect the quarterback. But then on third downs, you can roll him in and he looks like a 3-tech. type of guy in your NASCAR package. That makes him an extremely valuable piece. Obviously, Smith Orogbo is out this spring. He had knee surgery early on during his senior season. It was more something that had been lingering with him. He wanted to get it cleaned up so he can get ready for college football, but that is expected unless there's a major change. We'll see if Sark says anything different on this. He's expected to miss the spring, and so it'll be work with Torrey Becton, work rehabbing, but his physical upside, because of his first 2 steps, his physical upside is elite. I mean, he's a guy that picked Texas over Oklahoma, and it was a battle till the end. Yeah. So like you said, 2 tremendous edges. At linebacker, CJ, Brad Spence from Arkansas comes in, along with Elijah Bo Barnes, who's physically going to be ready to play, and Jonathan Cunningham, who I saw last week at North Crowley. He had his state championship gold medal on. I posted it on Twitter. He's very much in the Ty Anthony Smith frame. He's going to put on 20 pounds really quick. And I'm not saying he's going to be Ty Anthony Smith as a freshman, but he's going to has that same frame. And he's just that he under Torrey Becton, he's going to have a lot of strength and weight quickly. Brad Spence going to be an impact player, CJ, and Bo Barnes maybe as well, depth wise.
Yeah, 240 pounds already. And then that's a guy that you can use coming off the edge. You can use him in space. Arkansas did a great job against Texas utilizing him. Obviously, he had 7 tackles and a sack against the Longhorns. So Texas is very familiar with his talents and how they can utilize him. Texas likes to bring its backers. And I think as a result of that, you can free up Anthony Hill to do a little bit more with Spence in the rotation. Obviously, you'll get to see Ty Anthony Smith growing in his development as well. It's going to be pretty cool to see because, of course, with the impact of Nansen and that creativity of that linebacking blitz off the middle, Texas now with plenty of weapons, and you don't have to sacrifice one or the other when on the field. And so, again, that creativity of blitzing the linebackers up the middle, off the edges in that NASCAR package should continue to be a strength for the Longhorns. Moving to the secondary, Jerry, 4 guys moving in. Safety, my goodness, Jonah Williams, Zayla Six. We got to talk with Zayla a little bit on Coffee and Football.
Super impressive.
Longhorn live stream last week. Awesome kid. At cornerback, Cade Phillips, I got to see a little bit of in San Antonio for the All-American Bowl as well. Khalid Lockett said that he was the most impressive defensive back he's ever gone against in one-on-one situation. To give a little bit of some props to him as
CJ, Khalid Lockett doesn't see guys with his long arms and almost as big a hands as he does very often at all. And there aren't many players that can go up lengthwise with a Khalid Lockett, and that's what Cade Phillips is, to your point, absolutely. And then Caleb Chester.
Yes.
I think Caleb Chester is going to way outplay his ranking. He is a student of the game.
He's got it here.
We were on the same live stream, and Rod Babers was blown away listening to him to explain coverages. Rod was like, this guy sounds like he's been playing college football for years. I think 2 tremendous corner prospects. Jonah Williams, I actually spoke with him late last week, and he had already moved into Austin. He'll sit in on team meetings, but he is baseball focused this spring, along with he is not going to compete in spring football. So that means Hicks is going to get a lot of reps with Derek Williams still out with the ACL, and Jonah focusing on baseball this spring while learning the system kind of from the film room and not the field. Zelazik's going to have a lot of opportunities to get a lot of really good reps this spring.
How important is that for a guy of his age, right? Because he did skip a year, right? He reclassified up a class. For a guy that young, is it going to be too much? Does he have that in him? We talked to him. He's a smart kid, Jerry, but that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, look, and he'll start off as a third-team guy, but that's going to be third-team with probably more reps than if Jonah and him were both taking part in spring practice, right? I mean, so that's going to give him more reps. That's a great place to be. He's maybe the youngest player age-wise in the program too, so it's going to be a crash course for him. But you saw it on the y'all's interview. He's so mature. Yes. I don't think there's any doubt he can handle it.
I'm with you. Of course, remember, he was a 5-star in the 2026 class.
Yes.
Moved up. So the athleticism, and he's not lacking in the physicality side either as well. So,
and CJ, last guy for you then. Jack Boomeister, punter, who the guaranteed starter of all these guys, probably Cole Brevard too, if you're saying who's the guaranteed starters out of this group. Maybe Brad Spence is a third, but Boomeister for sure. He's an two-time all-conference punter, huge addition to the Horns, even though Michael Kern had his best game of the year in the last game of the year.
He did. He did. Maybe it was just punting in AT&T Stadium that got him, but he had a good showing there. That should be a positive to work behind Bo Meester, who, as you mentioned, two-time all-conference guy, Utah, 44.9 average net yardage last year for the Utes. He's bringing over that Aussie pro-style kick as well. So something that Texas will get to benefit from, because punting, again, a bit of a roller coaster in 2024. Now you got that certified, consistency with Bo Meester. Big time piece for the Longhorns, who looking to rebound in that special teams unit. But that's going to do it, right? Because you got 25 guys coming in, Jerry. And then one last question for you. Who are you looking at to kind of set the tone to get these guys acclimated from a leadership perspective? Have you thought about who's going to bridge that gap with all these new faces coming in?
I think Bo Barnes has a lot of leadership. He's kind of a mature guy. His father was a college linebacker. I think he comes out ahead of the game from a mental standpoint. He's a guy that I think is really like laser focused. High school, had played at Skyline, but they were in the District of Doom. He didn't win as much as some past Skyline teams.
Good point.
He's ready to be on a winning team, because it's nothing good. Hey, Skyline's got really good coaches, but you're over there against Cedar Hill, DeSoto, Duncanville, Lancaster. I mean, it's a tough road. I think he is a mature guy mentally for this team. I think Justice Terry, even though he's not from the state of Texas, because he's already had a few practices, is probably going to be a guy that's going to be looked upon by Kenny Baker to push Myron and Josiah. On the offensive side, I mean, look, I'm a big James Simon guy with this team next year, an ability to help. And then Jamie French just naturally, it just has the personality.
Yeah, he absolutely does. Of course, he had a big-time touchdown in that Navy All-American Bowl as well. Someone that, other recruits flock to. And for Texas to get these guys on campus, to utilize them, showcase them in the spring, should also help a little bit with recruiting in that sense as well. But that'll do it for today. Of course, Jerry, thank you very much for your time. 25 new faces on campus. We'll be covering the entire day, the entire moving day over at ontexasfootball.com. So come join us, join the conversation as well. But that'll do it for Jerry. For myself, thank you very much for watching, and y'all have a great Sunday. Hook 'em.